Welcome back to Season 5 of Porcelain Peak, a strange and scary podcast featuring Chop Talk, trivia, and deep dive main discussions into the odd and unusual.
Yeah.
I'm one of your hosts, Tony Tone, and I'm joined by, here we go, Johnny Depth. Is the double? Nope. All right.
That's
Anthony.
his Pornhub name. Check out his account.
I do hate it. I hate it quite a
But
bit.
it's got a double, bro, okay? And
I also think it's fun if you really put that emphasis on the at the end. Johnny
Exact-
Depp.
Yeah, see? Anyway.
It just sounds like you have a speech impediment.
Well, that's rude, John. And that's not what we're about here. We're a very nice podcast. And this week for Chop Talk, we're going to go through the Oscar nominations because one of our favorite films got the most
And
nominations.
I dressed for the theme. Got
There
an
you go.
Oscar on my shirt.
Then we're going to play trivia. And I think you had a solo win,
I did have a solo win.
which is fucking crazy because it's been tied for a while.
See, when it comes to trivia knowledge, I have a real Johnny depth of it. You know?
Oh, you hated it 2 minutes ago, but now you're really embracing it, right?
Let's call a callback.
Yeah.
And then
So
for,
call it a callback. I've been here for years.
for our main discussion, we are going to continue, wrap up, James Wanuary talking about AQUAMAN. So
Women.
stay tuned for that, and we'll go ahead and get started with that Chop Talk.
Booyah.
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
Before we get started with those noms, how you boys doing? Men, how you men doing?
Man.
Had us had him off. That's my bad.
Men. I can't see. It's not like I can't join in. It's the world's catchiest tune. I'll go first, okay? I'm doing pretty great. I didn't get up at 5:30 this morning to see the Oscar nominations, but when I remembered at work today, I made sure to Google them, and they put me in a pretty good mood because, as we'll talk about here in a little bit, I think it's going to be a really big show. And
Weather in LA is weather.
yeah, the weather is weather. And why do I have this jar? Yeah, but other than that, had a pretty good couple days at work. Been watching a lot of really good movies, trying to get all caught up on the Oscar nominations so I can make educated guesses and maybe finally fucking win this. Am I allowed to touch it, even though it's not mine this year?
It's like
I think
it's like
that's an old one. We quit doing the trophy, but go ahead.
it's like the Stanley Cup curse. Like you're not supposed to touch it if you haven't been the winner.
The Emmeline Sasheen Gaynor Award.
When's the event? Did we get a date?
I believe
think
it's
it's
in March this year,
Oh, okay.
which is insane.
I need to know ASAP because I want to make sure that
Sunday, March 12th, 2023. Honoring movies released in 2022.
because I want to be off
Yeah.
so that way I can be there instead of having to submit my
Ballot.
from the ether.
How about you, John? How you been doing since we last spoke?
I've been doing all right. I'm 2 bosses away from fully completing Elden Ring, which I've been having a great time with. I beat one of the late game bosses last night, and I popped off, and it scared the shit out of Kevin Bacon.
You busted it.
I was about to say, you shouldn't be popping off in front of your dog and also not in the middle of a boss battle.
No, popping off is just like celebrating.
And you were
Back in my day, popping off was cranking one out.
back in my day, clapping cheeks was.
But I've been having a good time with that. My check engine light came on today, which I was very...
Ooh, you sent chills down my spine.
That's some real horror
my
shit
God.
right there. So I called the dealership and I was like, hey, my check engine light came on. Like, what do I do? And they were like, oh, well, you can bring it in and pay $215 for a diagnostic. I was like, you can eat my whole ass.
Oh,
I'm going to go
when-
to AutoZone.
Suddenly, when the shoe's on the other table, which has turned, you're real frustrated. But working at Peach, you're very used to having that conversation with people. Well, I could run a diagnostic, but it's going to cost you.
That's not true at all. Peach is very liberal with their diagnostics. We'll say
You
that.
get a diagnostic. You get a diagnostic.
So let me guess. Desert rats ate through your wiring.
I have no idea. I just know that it's some form of an issue with the fuel system in the car. So at some point in time, I'm gonna have to take it to them anyway. And
Needs more carburetor.
or less
You-
carburetor.
You seem to be running quite low on blinker fluid.
I'm glad you guys are doing good and a little bit irritating. Why don't we start talking about those Oscar nominations right off the rip? Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
11 nominations.
11, the most of this year, followed closely by All Quiet on the Western Front.
On the Western.
Which is
You almost sounded like it was starring Scooby Doo. Roll quiet on the Western Front.
which is a remake, right?
Yeah, so there is
A
a
German remake of All
yeah,
Quiet on the Western Front.
There's a black and white version from way back in the day, and I only know that because Wendigoon did a video about it and about how fucked up that version is. Yeah, so All Quiet on the Western Front did surprisingly
9.
Huh?
9 noms.
Yeah, so there was that, and then on top of that, John Williams has now officially broken his own record for, I think, most nominations of anybody ever. Not in this specifically this year, but over the years he has now gotten more
Every time he
nominations.
gets nominated, it's just now the record
He's
increased.
pushing the record by one time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Good for him, though.
So we can go ahead and start. I just have the Oscars list pulled up.
Also have it up here in front of you on screen as well if you are watching on YouTube.
Okay. Do you have the whole thing up, or what category do you have
Right
up?
now, so I have Best Picture up right now.
Best Picture. So, well, you just have it in front of you. Why don't you just read it?
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Yeah,
So
I'll put
Top
this bad
Gun,
boy
Top
away.
Gun Maverick, Women Talking, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Banshees of Inisherin, Triangle of Sadness, The Fablemans, All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar, The Way of Water, Elvis, and Tar.
Holy
are your
fuck.
It's crazy. After they stopped it being a 5 thing and they went up like with the possibility to go to 10, it's been crazy how many Best Picture nominations there are. And it always seems like they miss out on some really good shit every year.
I think so, too. Yeah. I mean, I was crazy shocked, and we'll talk more about it, but that Northman got nothing.
Yeah.
That movie is a powerhouse of filmmaking and a powerhouse in body construction. You know what I'm saying? But
Hall of Meat.
great selection there, I think.
Yeah.
I am happy to see Everything Everywhere. When we watched that movie, yeah, I know that we all fell in love with it. I was not expecting it to go the places that it's gone. It's gone everywhere.
Oh, how the places that you'll go.
Yeah, it
You know what I
definitely
mean?
has much longer legs than Swiss Army Man did in terms of getting exposure. But
Getting watched.
yeah, people fucking love the movie, and I think for me the biggest surprises of like movies that snuck in here would be All Quiet on the Western Front, just because that.
It's a foreign movie, which we are seeing a little bit more traction in that category now.
Yeah, because Triangle of Sadness is also a foreign movie that's nominated in this category. I'm surprised to not see Decision to Leave, Park Chan-wook's new movie that had a ton of buzz about being Oscar nominated and didn't get nominated in any categories. So that's probably like the biggest snub of this award season in general, is that just Decision to Leave wasn't nominated for anything. Not surprised to see The Fablemans in here. Not surprised to see Tar. That was excellent. Top Gun, I mean, I think is just like the movie of movies in terms of just being like a real movies movie.
It's a good movie and it's a fun movie, and we don't always see those two things together. Obviously, Everything Everywhere All at Once fits that category as well, but not all of those movies do.
Yeah, so I think that the only one on this list for Best Picture that I haven't seen is Women Talking, just because that one had kind of a weird botched release where it didn't, like, it's surprising. Good that it's here, but surprising. And I think that outside of that, it's going to be really hard to pick, like you were saying earlier off mic, between what I feel like should win and what I think is actually going to win, because you have something like The Fablemans, which is, you know, it's Spielberg, it's John Williams potentially doing his last score, though he said that he'll continue with Spielberg, but it's an autobiographical movie about Spielberg.
It's also
about
like a love letter to
movies
cinema,
and, like,
yeah.
growing up
Love
with
Letter to
movies.
Cinema, about one of our greatest film. Yeah, I mean,
Then you have something like Elvis, which is obviously about like the king of rock and roll, and it's got this big, crazy Baz Luhrmann style. And
you
you
know,
have
the
Austin
music-
Butler getting a lot of buzz for the performance.
Music
and-
biopics just they slap when it comes to Oscar season too.
I feel like Fablemans is the most like Oscar movie.
Yeah, I would. That's.
But
If it wins, I won't be surprised.
Yeah.
I
but
won't be happy. But
we
I
all
won't
know
be surprised.
where my vote is at, though.
Well, I think mine's there too.
Yeah, everything everywhere all at once. Anyway, next category.
Next category, Best Actor. We got Brendan Fraser for The Whale, Austin Butler for Elvis,
Good pronunciation.
Colin Farrell for Banshees of Inisherin, Bill Nighy for Living, and Paul Mescal for After Sun. I think I've only seen Elvis from this category. Austin Butler was fantastic, and he probably has a good leg to lead in this. But if I remember correctly, you said that Mescal in After Sun is fantastic.
Yeah, that was what made me happiest about this category here is that I didn't think After Sun was going to get any attention at the awards, and just having him nominated in Best Actor makes me super happy because, I thought he was fantastic in that movie. Brendan Fraser, obviously, I think is the shoo-in for this category in terms of like the amount of buzz that's gone around his performance. Like I was telling you guys earlier, like a lot of people have talked about how, yes, the movie The Whale is not great. I think it has like a 60-something% on Rotten, but that his performance is what makes the movie stand out. And and that's reflected in the fact that The Whale isn't nominated for Best Picture, but he is nominated in this category, which I think you brought up means that there's a potential that he might not win it because The Whale isn't nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, I read an article saying that the last time Best Actor won
For a
movie that wasn't nominated for Best Picture was back when Crazy Heart was nominated and Jeff Bridges won for that performance, and that was the last time. I don't think that was. I thought almost like 2016, but I have no idea.
They might be old. I think it's older than that.
Oh, really? Yeah. So I mean, it's been a while since that's happened. So I mean, that's not saying it can't happen, but that's just typically how it goes.
And I feel like with Bill Nighy, I haven't seen Living. I'll have to check it out, and I'm sure his performance is great, and I love Bill Nighy, but this does kind of feel like, they always have to have the older performer. Like if the category is all relatively younger nominees, like your Austin Butler, I mean, I know Colin Farrell and Brendan Fraser are like in their 50s now or whatever, or close to it, but
they need like what was the guy who was in like a couple years ago, older comedy actor?
Anthony Hopkins.
No.
Adam Sandler.
Also no. Shoot, I don't remember what his name is.
Walter Matthau.
No. I don't remember. Let's move on.
Okay. But yeah, I think really we're probably looking at Brendan Fraser or Austin Butler, just because Austin Butler, I think, is another one of those performances where, like, even if you didn't love Elvis the movie, most people were like, Austin Butler was fucking amazing in that movie, and I completely agree. Like, the stuff surrounding that, especially Tom Hanks. Mm-hmm. Maybe not the best in the world, but he was fucking fantastic. So, yeah, we moving on to what? Actress in a leading role?
Yep, Best Actress. Is it Andrea or Andrea? I think it's Andrea, right?
Yeah, Andrea Riseborough.
For To Leslie. Michelle Williams for The Fabelmans. Kate Blanchett for Tar. Ana de Armas for Blonde. And then Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is the first time that an Asian actress has been nominated for Best Actress.
Wow.
Yeah, that's insane. Shame on you, Academy, but also
I mean, fantastic that it happened.
Yes,
fantastic is the first time.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, all things considered, it's fantastic that it happened. I think that it's risky nominating two people with the same first name in the category because the Oscars, they're known to mix shit up sometimes. Michelle Williams and Michelle Yeoh. But a couple of interesting things that stand out to me here is that people fucking hated Blonde, but Ana de Armas was so apparently, I haven't seen the movie, but it was so, because I've heard it's just unbearable to watch, but apparently she was so good in the role that she's able to transcend that movie getting pretty much critically panned.
Wow.
And then the other thing is,
that's good that at least some people in the Academy are able to see these movies and pick out these performances that are worth noting, even if the movie's not good. Yeah, that can really just turn you off of a whole thing.
Yeah, it's not like the Razzies where it's like, oh, well, Firestarter sucked, so we're gonna nominate the the little girl who definitely wasn't the problem with that movie.
I don't want to get started on that because I have thoughts.
You're gonna pop off.
That's why I didn't include it in Chop Talk News and said let's just talk about the Oscars. The other thing that I think is amazing about this category is that Andrea Riseborough pretty much got this nomination by self-funding her campaign to get it, she just networked with a bunch of other actors that she knew who had seen her in this movie. And Kate Winslet actually, I think in an interview said that Andrea Riseborough and To Leslie is the best performance by an actress like ever. And that got people to start looking at this movie. I watched it on Saturday, and she's fucking amazing. I've always liked her in like Possessor and Mandy and stuff, but definitely not The Grudge. But in this movie, she's fucking incredible, and it's a really, really good movie that I think people should check out. And yeah, she usually when you get a nomination, it's because the studio has like thrown parties and done a bunch of PR and all this stuff to get you there. And she basically was like, I know I'm not going to get nominated unless I do this myself. And she just self-funded and networked her own nomination, and it kind of blew everybody away.
I'm interested to check it out because I like I said, I enjoyed her in Mandy and in Possessor, and I feel like just looking at those two performances alone, she has a ton of range.
Yeah, but I still want Michelle.
Yeah, I mean, I mean that it is what it is. I mean, I'm not mad when somebody wins an award, but I think that Michelle Yeoh has paid her dues for a long time.
I heard some people were saying that Viola got snubbed.
Oh, for Woman King?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's
so?
fantastic in Woman King.
And also, that was a movie that wasn't amazing, right? But she was the best part of it.
It had a lot of it had negative press because it doesn't tell the story the way that history tells the story. But I feel like
what is Glorious Bastards, but everyone loved that shit.
Yeah, but what's presented, I think, is a very, very entertaining movie that it really celebrates like the excellence of black women, and I think that's something that should be celebrated.
So you think that's a snub too?
I do, but I also haven't seen all the performances on this list either.
Yeah. All right. Why don't we get into the next category? Yeah.
Next category is Best Original Song, according to this. So we have Natu Natu by some names. I'm going to jump past that. This Is a Life from Mitski, David Byrne, and Ryan Lott. I don't know why this doesn't list any of the songs. Looks like Lift Me Up. It looks like that might be from
Black Panther,
Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, so Lift Me Up is Black Panther, music by Thames, Rihanna, Ryan Coogler, and Ludwig Göransson. Natu Natu is by M.M. Keeravani. This Is a Life from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Yeah, that's the David Byrne and Mitski song. And then Hold My Hand from Top Gun Maverick by Lady Gaga and Blood Pop. Applause from something called Tell It Like a Woman
by Diane Warren.
And apparently it's just because it's Diane Warren, and apparently she just gets from what Dan Murrell on his YouTube channel said, she could fart into a microphone and send it in for a nomination and she would get it. So yeah, I don't know much about her, but apparently she is a fantastic songwriter. I don't know. My personal pick for this category is Natu Natu. That song fucking slaps, and if they don't do a full-on performance of it at the show, then the Oscars are canceled.
Typically, Best Original Song usually does get a performance at the show.
Yeah.
I think they've done that since the award show in it was either 2006 or 2007 when Swell Season won for Falling Slowly from the Once soundtrack. Because they performed it live, and that was actually the first time that I had seen it or even heard of that movie, and it then became one of my favorite movies.
Once?
Yes.
I don't even know what that is.
I'll explain it a different time.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, cool.
All right, let's move on to the next category here. So Best Animated Features, what it lists here. So we have Turning Red, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, The Sea Beast, and Puss in Boots, The Last Wish.
This is going to be a very difficult category for me to choose.
Sea Beast was cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen Sea Beast or Turning Red, so those are my last two that I need to catch up on. But
Turning
I thought
Red's cool
that,
too. But I mean,
all three of these movies made me cry. Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell, and Puss in Boots. I think they're all fantastic in completely different and amazing ways that I think showcase.
And very different animation styles, right?
Yeah,
Puss in Boots is almost like an oil painting.
Well, it's by some of the same people that did Into the Spider-Verse, and you can tell by some of the animation that it's all very like kinetic and colorful and crazy. And then Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, is like a little stop motion shell, and then you have
I was kind of surprised to see it.
Be in the animated category?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering, I was like, is this going to be, considered an animated movie? But I guess for the most part it is. Yeah, it's really tough because I think that Del Toro's on an artistry level, I don't know. It's just really hard to say because Puss in Boots is fucking fantastic. So for me, it would be between those two. I want Del Toro to win another Oscar for Pinocchio, but also it would just be cool if Puss in Boots got that love and attention.
It'd be cool if Marcel did too.
Yeah, especially since that started as like a YouTube thing, and it's the same. It's Jenny Slate and the same dude like that.
Yeah.
Did the YouTube things now making the movie. So
A24 is just popping off this year though. There's so many stuff. All kinds of nominations for different categories.
I'm not mad about it.
International feature film: All Quiet on the Western Front, Argentina 1985, The Quiet Girl, Close, and EO.
I don't have much to say in this category because I've only seen one of these movies. Again, shocked that Decision to Leave is not in this category.
A lot of people were also shocked that RRR didn't make it on here either.
Also shocked that RRR is not in here because that...
It barely got anything. It got like one nom, I think. And
Well, I think a lot of this, like, surprisingly... It comes down to timing because RRR has been out for like the whole year and had so much buzz earlier in the year, and then by the time we got to the actual voting for nominations part, it seems like the buzz had petered off. And same with Decision to Leave. Like, it seems like the excitement around that had petered off, but then other movies like All Quiet on the Western Front just kind of show up toward the end of this year cycle and end up with several awards. So I think it really just depends on what's in the conversation when they go to vote for those movies.
do you know the country of origin for RRR? Because I was reading something today and it said it was Tollywood, and I never heard that phrase before.
Let's see. RRR. It's a pirate's favorite film.
So while you're looking that up, I think it's going to go to All Quiet just because
it's Indian Telugu language epic. So Indian.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
I think it's going to go to All Quiet here. Typically, it's a pretty good indicator that if it's nominated for Best Picture, it will also win international.
Yeah.
I think it's been that way every year.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind when I'm filling out my ballot.
Yeah. I hate to give away trade secrets, but I mean, I'm typically in middle of the pack every time around.
It's part of the game, baby. If you're going to be trying to fill out a ballot, you got to know how these people think. You got to know how the trends are, and then they somehow find a way to fucking just slap it out of your hands like Will Smith.
It always comes down to the technical categories anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Best Director. So we have Martin McDonagh for Banshees of Inisherin, Todd Field for Tar, Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness, the Daniels for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Steven Spielberg for The
Drop
Fabelmans.
Just
Daniels.
Daniels. Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert.
Sorry, what was the last one?
Your mom.
Oh, really? What did she direct?
Both of these nuts got him. Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans.
Yeah, so this is going to be a tough race because I could see them wanting to give it to Spielberg because the Oscars is known for also doing the kind of we'll give it to him because we think, it's later in his career, it's an autobiographical movie.
Especially if he doesn't win Best Picture.
Then they'll give it to him for
you know
that.
what I mean? Yeah.
As much as I love the direction, on all of these movies, Tar is incredible. I could see that potentially winning Best Picture. I don't really know about director. Triangle of Sadness, I would love to see win this category. But at the end of the day, obviously, Daniels, I would probably honestly cry if they won this category and if they win in best, really on any of the categories that they win in. But
from directing a video for one of our favorite bands to winning an Oscar, like, that's fucking nuts that they're even nominated.
It's funny too because
that's a bizarre pipeline.
A lot of people obviously don't know that they directed Manchester Orchestra stuff.
Yeah.
And
that video is so fucking good, and you can see like, oh, okay, this is where some of their ideas started.
Yeah, I guess they directed the Turn Down for What music video.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's what people know them more for. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they in tweets today, people were saying like, crazy to think that the people who made the Harry Potter farting corpse movie after making the Turn Down for What music video are now Oscar-nominated directors. So yeah,
that video for Simple Math. If you guys haven't seen it, check that out. It's such a good time.
And I think they also did the one for The Alien.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but definitely check out the Simple Math one. Changed my life and made me instant fans of Daniels.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much we need to get into all of the little categories, the technical categories. What else do we have in terms of bigger categories?
I would say let's hit up supporting.
They got supporting actress here: Angela Bassett for Wakanda Forever, Carrie Condon for Banshees of Inisherin, Jamie Lee Curtis for Everywhere All at Once, Stephanie Sue for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Hong Chow for The Whale.
So I
Sounds
think
good to me.
I can't really speak on Angela Bassett for Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
She's
'cause I haven't
fantastic.
seen it yet. It does drop next Wednesday on Disney Plus, so I'm excited to check it out. And I've heard,
I think you're gonna like it.
and I've heard people say that she is probably going to win this category.
She's also the first actor in any Marvel film that's been nominated for an Academy Award.
Ever?
because Chadwick was nominated, but for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, not for Black Panther. So
crazy, dude! After like fucking 15 years.
So that's
than
why
that
I'm
if
like,
you
I'm even
include
more excited to
Marvel.
watch Wakanda Forever now, knowing that like obviously her performance is apparently so good that she was able to transcend that impossible barrier of Marvel films only being nominated in special effects categories.
As much as I'm happy for Everything Everywhere, and as much as I enjoy Jamie Lee Curtis's performance, I don't know that she is like.
I'm just happy that
Stephanie Sue was recognized.
Yeah, definitely. But she is. I mean, I feel like
the movie is
they
about
could have been
her and Michelle
co-stars.
Yeoh.
Yeah,
they
you
are
know what I mean?
co-stars of that movie, really.
Well,
and
we'll get into
Ki-Hee-Kwan,
the next
but yeah.
one.
Right, so I'm a little bit surprised to see that. Not mad about it, but I do think that could have gone somewhere else, and I wouldn't have been upset if Curtis wasn't on this.
Well, yeah, it's like don't get us wrong. We're huge Jamie Lee Curtis fans, and I was really excited and moved to see the pictures of her reaction when she saw on the stream that she had been nominated, and she like broke down into tears and all this, and that's super cool. Especially crazy that the same year she was in a fucking terrible Halloween movie, she was also nominated for an Oscar for something else. But yeah, that's a spot that should have gone to a different actress, I think, and shouldn't have been taken up by two people for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, obviously the people involved in that movie I'm sure don't feel that way, but I would have liked to have seen some other actresses in here. I thought Hong Chow was excellent in The Menu, but I haven't seen her in The Whale, so I'm excited. Carrie Condon was great. So yeah, I mean, really.
Who was she in The Menu? His like main assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
she was good in that.
So good year for her.
Yeah. Best Supporting Actor: Brendan Gleeson for Banshees.
Mad Eye Moody himself.
Brian Tyree Henry for Causeway, another A24 joint.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people are very excited to see him again. Another one of those situations where the movie he was in apparently was middling, and I guess even like Jennifer Lawrence, who's known to get noms, for her more dramatic stuff.
It's A24 and Apple TV Plus, right?
Yeah, but even from what I heard, she didn't deliver that great of a performance either. But again, he got recognized, even though all that stuff was kind of against him. Mm-hmm. Another crazy situation where a guy we watched on
Atlanta.
FX,
and
this random show
Paperboy on Atlanta,
nobody cared about for a while,
is
now nominated for an
and
Oscar.
also has been in like a ton of massive movies
and some stinkers.
Yeah.
Child's Play, looking at you.
Yeah, it's crazy how his career has really blown up in just a short couple of years. Judd Hirsch, a lot of people were questioning whether this nomination would happen.
I stepped on you when you were trying to go through them all.
No, so Judd Hirsch is in one scene of The Fabelmans, but he's so fucking good that he got this nomination. He's literally in one scene of the movie, and it's an excellent scene, and it's kind of like the pivot scene for the Spielberg Fabelman character.
What else?
Barry Keoghan also for Banshees. And then Ki-Hee-Kwan for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Which, from everything I've heard from everybody,
he's the front runner.
It's his award. He's going to get it. And I don't see that being up for argument, because
if he gives another speech like he did at the Globes, I'm going to
even the tweets,
shit myself to death.
Even like the tweets he posts about how moved he is by all of this, make me tear up. Where he just talks about how like
so
he used
grateful.
He said today like he used to dream as a kid about walking the red carpet at the Oscars, and how when he left acting, he like felt that dream had forever disappeared inside of him, and all of this stuff. And now to be able to go up and have already won.
Just thinking about it.
I'm not even kidding.
But I think what really also gets me is how hard he's rooting for Brendan Fraser. I like just watching them at events and just him like his face lighting up as soon as he hears his name. He's just like so
all of the
excited
pictures
for
of
his
them
friend.
together in Encino Man, and people
people
are like, oh, the stars of Encino Man are now Oscar nominated.
I didn't until I saw that scene recently. I never put that together that was him.
Yeah, neither
from the
did I.
Goonies or anything. I was like, oh shit! And then I saw, I think on one of the like actors on actors or whatever the fuck.
It's the one where they're on it together.
Yeah, and I was like, oh shit, that's right.
Yeah, so
He's so grateful, and I think I love that the most. Like, I know we get people that are nominated and they give their speeches and they're always very, like, most of the time humbled, but he is just like, I'm happy to be here and I appreciate you guys so much, and it's kind of beautiful.
Yeah.
the only other person that I think really like to see win this award would be Barry Keoghan, because one, he's heartbreaking and hilarious and excellent in Banshees, but also I read today that like he also has an interesting backstory about how like he spent, I think he spent I think like 6 or 7 years of his childhood in foster care and went through like 17 foster homes, and just in a window somewhere saw an ad for like a bit part acting role and decided he was just going to go for it, and now is an Oscar nominated supporting actor, and he's 30. He's my age.
Yeah, he's young. He's a very powerful actor. Like he has a lot of range. He can go to a lot of different places.
I think our first exposure to him in Killing of a Sacred Deer was
Who is this?
It's the creepy kid from Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Oh shit. Really?
Yeah, and the new Joker in the Batman, and yeah.
Holy fuck. I didn't realize that was who you guys are talking about.
Mm-hmm. Also
Good for that fucking weirdo, dude.
Also, there's just a lot of I mean, honestly, yeah. And there's just a lot of good I mean, not that Irish people need to be in the spotlight, but as a person of Irish heritage, I like to see all of these hard to pronounce Irish names and Banshees and all that. So yeah, what got any more categories for us?
Let's do screenplays. We'll do cinematography, and we'll call it good for there.
Okay.
So for best adapted screenplay, we have Living, Top Gun Maverick, Women Talking, Glass Onion, and All Quiet on the Western Front. We found out some interesting information today.
Yeah, so I was under the impression that adapted meant from a book, I guess.
So when you told me that, I didn't know either why Glass Onion and Top Gun were in this category. I thought maybe it was because Glass Onion wears its influences on its sleeve, and you could say it was adapted from Agatha Christie stuff, maybe. And then for Top Gun, I know that movie was in development with a script by Tony Scott before he passed away, and I was like, maybe it's because it's adapted off of that screenplay. But no, it turns out that the Oscars just have a rule where if your movie is a sequel, it's considered adapted from the original movie in that franchise. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, so Knives Out was when it was nominated, it was for original screenplay. Now Glass Onion is in adapted screenplay. I am pretty shocked that Top Gun got a nomination for this, because I think if anything was like a weak point in that movie, it was maybe the screenplay. Like, I don't think that was what made that movie good or interesting. It's a pretty by the numbers, like military plane flying script. Like, I don't get it. Very strange. And I still haven't seen Women Talking or Living. I'm really interested to check them out. And All Quiet on the Western Front. I'm sure it had a great screenplay. I mean, I read the whole thing in the subtitles. So
Stage left.
Yeah, this will be one that I'll have to. As I haven't watched anything here yet, I still haven't watched Glass Onion. So, gonna happen at some point in time. Hopefully,
it's gonna be a busy couple months for you playing catch up. Top of everything else we're doing. And then what original screenplay?
Original screenplay. We got Daniels for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Martin McDonagh for Banshees of Inisherin. Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness. Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner for The Fabelmans, and Todd Field for Tar. What's really interesting about this is that all directors as well. So all of these were written and directed by, which I don't think is anything that's ever happened at the Oscars.
Oh, that's
before.
fucking cool.
I didn't even put that together when I was reading these. That's a really good point.
Does Spielberg usually write stuff?
No, not typically.
Well, I mean, it makes sense for this. It's his story.
Right. But still, that's crazy. Good for them. That's really neat.
I think
doubling down like KFC, baby.
This is going to be a really fucking tough category because I think Martin McDonagh is an excellent writer, and I fucking love the dialogue in his movies like In Bruges and Banshees of Inisherin. And so,
how did you like that movie?
Banshees? Mm-hmm. I thought it was great. It's weird. It's got like a little bit of almost like a little bit of like a horror vibe. It's also a comedy. Like it's weird, and also just very Irish, which I loved. Everybody saying feckin' this and feckin' that. There's I think I told you about the part where Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell are talking, and he's like, oh, I'm just, I'm tired of hearing about your little donkey shite, and he's like, well, it's my little pony shite, so shows how much you listen. And then, Everything Everywhere All at Once, like, we can just say the laundry and taxes thing, and we all start bawling.
Yeah.
So there's a lot about that movie to love. And then Tar, I think, is, again, excellent, and I don't think people should sleep on that movie, because I do think it's going to win in at least a couple of these categories.
You heard it here. Don't sleep on Tar.
It's black, sticky, gets everywhere.
Let's move on to best cinematography. We have no shock here. Roger Deakins for Empire of Light. Deakins is anytime he makes a movie, he will be on this list, guaranteed.
Even though
Never
he
fails.
rarely wins, right?
Yeah, he rarely wins, but he will always be here.
Didn't he just get one recently?
I think he got it for. Did he get it for
Dune?
Yeah,
I
think so.
Or was it?
No, I don't think
It was
Dune- I think Dune-
1917.
17, yeah.
Is Dune this year or Dune last year?
Dune's last year.
Oh shit! I think it was. That.
Yeah, I think
I
it was
couldn't remember
19.
if it was Blade Runner, if it was Dune, or if it was.
I don't know, but it was.
I think it was.
either way,
I'm pretty sure it was 1917.
either
All
way,
movies
relatively
he would have
recent.
deserved it for.
Yeah.
But
James Friend for All Quiet on the Western Front. Darius Kanji for Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths. Never heard of this movie.
So this movie.
It's after The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
So this is from.
No, I know what all of those are.
This is from Alejandro Inarritu, the guy who did
yeah.
Birdman and The Revenant. And
Yeah,
apparently it's an awful movie. But
That's what I heard. And I
What
guess
a name.
Sam
What a name,
Mendes
though.
has a new movie out too that is supposed to be awful, but had some like good parts to it.
yeah, I mean, that's like, you got to know you're a dope cinematographer if the movie is terrible and you're still getting nominated.
They're like, but it's beautiful though.
Yeah, but again, I could be speaking out of school because I haven't seen Bardo, but I don't really intend on checking it out except maybe a few clips just to see what the cinematography is like. And I haven't seen Empire of Light, didn't even know that was a movie, but I guess because Roger Deakins is involved, like you said, it's a shoo-in.
And then we have Mandy Walker for Elvis, which is a visual spectacle, but most of that comes from the editing.
Yeah, I was like, how much of that is in the cinematography? It feels like it's more in the crazy Baz Luhrmann editing and roulette wheels spinning past and Vegas strip signs and everything.
And then Florian Hoffmeister, good name, for Tar.
I'm Mr. Hoffmeister. Sorry,
Meister means
Florian.
Master, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's Hoff?
I don't know.
Master of Hoff? Master of something. Like Dudemeister means master of dudes.
I mean, I think I mentioned to you guys earlier, the only thing that I think is absolutely insane in this category is that Top Gun Maverick isn't here.
I think it's pretty wild that Avatar's not here either.
And also Avatar, yeah. So the fact that both
But
of those
yeah,
movies
those
aren't...
movies.
Like, really, I think Empire of Light and probably Bardo could both be switched out for Top Gun and Avatar, and it would make a lot more sense. It just almost seems like they were afraid to nominate... Because these are very obviously, like, artsy, more Oscar-y movies, and
Totally.
it seems like maybe they were more afraid to put Avatar and Top Gun into too many categories, even though they ended up being the highest grossing movies by far of the year.
Yeah.
And people fucking love one of them and still are arguing about the other one that has made $2 billion. But
I think I'm good there. I mean, yeah, there's other categories and there are nominations, but I think that's
well,
enough
and
for
we'll be
me.
following up on all this, I'm sure, as it gets closer, and what we,
Yeah, we'll
maybe
probably
we'll
do an
do,
Oscar
we'll do a
episode.
check-in, and then when the Oscars actually happen, we'll obviously do like some sort of recap episode or something. I'm just really hoping that this ends up being a good show without any weird, crazy controversies or insane things happening.
No fucking people getting assaulted on stage. No mixing up the Best Picture winner. None of that bullshit.
No John Travolta mispronouncing names.
Yeah.
But all that.
Adele Dazeem. Just give me like a good show, a good entertaining show,
Yeah.
and fucking Everything Everywhere All at Once better win every fucking category.
All at once. And the winners are.
And then the pressure's going to be on to see what kind of weird, crazy, insane thing the Daniels can make.
Sorry, I didn't mean to worm you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
follow it up.
and briefly, there's some Friday the 13th stuff that may or may not be happening, and some house stuff that may or may not be happening. But
I think
we'll
also-
talk more about that next week if we feel like it.
Also, as of time of recording, I believe this upcoming week is when, speaking of Possessor, when
Infinity Pool.
Brandon Cronenberg's new movie comes out.
Oh shit!
The movie that people have been saying is disgusting, revolting, F cinema score, which I'm like,
Oh
Sign
God,
me
sign
up.
me up. Yeah, baby, I'm
100%
there. I'm there day one.
yeah, apparently there's an Alexander Skarsgård cum shot in the first 20 minutes.
Hell yeah.
I'm into it. Give me that Northman.
We'll go ahead and get started with trivia. For the love of God.
Explode.
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right? Right?
All right, we're going to get started with trivia, but before we jump into the main game and see if John can get himself a streak, we got a couple of questions from our bonus trivia questions from last week. Anthony, we'll get started with you. Yours was, what is the first killer doll movie? I believe I said Tales of Terror, and John said Magic.
Yeah, so you're both wrong.
Older, I'm guessing.
Older. And it is a movie that none of us will have heard of. I read an article about the history of creepy doll movies. The first instance of a creepy/killer doll in a movie appears to be The Great Gobbo from 1929. I read the plot synopsis of this movie, and it is about a mentally unstable ventriloquist who eventually starts going so insane that it appears that the ventriloquist dummy is also alive and talking and doing evil things. So, yeah, never heard of it, but I want to check it out now because all of the posters look weird and creepy. And ventriloquist dolls are creepy.
Probably inspiration for something like Magic.
Or Dead Silence.
Yeah.
Oh, it's magic. You know.
John, your question was, what is the highest grossing killer doll movie? Anthony said Bride of Chucky, and I said Annabelle Creation.
And I gave you a little hint and said that one of you was correct. And it was Tone. They were Tones.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So
now?
Annabelle Creation grossed $306.5 million at the box office.
I mean, that one was good, right? Didn't we all pretty much enjoy that
I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, that's David F. Sandberg,
one? Yeah.
who's doing the
Andy's,
Shazam movies now.
And he's dead.
So yeah, I have a new question for you guys.
Hi.
New question.
To lead us into the next or into this episode. So in our main discussion, we're going to be talking about James Wan's, DC's, Zack Snyder's, Jason Momoa's Aquaman, right?
AQUAMAN.
More or
So
less,
a lot of people know about the lost city of Atlantis, but I'm here to educate you a little bit, or for you to educate yourselves. And I wanted to ask you guys, do you know which Greek philosopher invented the idea of Atlantis to win an argument? Because
I did not. Did you look this up? Because you're like, where did that myth come from?
Well, so I had known for a long time that that Atlantis was not ever any sort of historical thing. I knew that it was like some story that had been written, so I did some research into it and was like, well, since Aquaman is supposed to be from Atlantis and they kind of replay the classic Atlantis sinking into the sea legend in the movie, I was like, where did that come from? And so I looked a little bit into it while I was in the car waiting for John to get here. And do you guys have any guesses on who the Greek philosopher who invented Atlantis was?
I'm going to guess Aristotle.
Okay, good guess.
I heard that I think it's a different person wrote about Atlantis and the way that it was described, that they think it's somewhere in the Sahara, actually.
Yeah.
And there's like rings.
Maybe that's why they go to the Sahara in Aquaman.
Well, when they did that, that triggered that memory for me, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that that's an idea that people have had, because there's a spot that is described and there's no way. I forget who it was, but they described it in a certain way.
For a little bit of background, the unnamed philosopher who came up with the idea of Atlantis did it as a way to demonstrate the hubris of society at the time, and how if a civilization got too big for its britches, things could go south for it. And so it's like a completely invented allegory.
Yeah.
So
What'd you say?
I said Aristotle. I'm kind of regretting that now.
Why?
I think that it was somebody else.
should have gone with your gut. It's too late.
I don't know. Who?
Socrates?
Plato.
All right. Good guess.
I knew you were going with Plato.
Well,
I didn't know I was going with Plato. I don't know how fucking you knew.
I knew.
the answer shall be revealed on next week's episode. Tune in.
Dun, dun, dun.
But for now, let's get into some regular old horror movie edition, Trivial Pursuit horror movie edition
Nailed
trivia.
it. How this is going to work, we're going to read a category and then go in a circle reading to each other a question from that category, with me reading to John, Anthony, and Anthony back to me until we crown a winner. And John won last week independently, and so we'll see if he can get himself a little streak going.
First category is monster.
John, who directed Dawn of the Dead from 2004?
That would be fucking. There's one of those classic Porcelain Peak coinky dinks because it's Zack Snyder.
That is correct.
I need to just stop talking on this podcast.
I mean, like I didn't
be a silent observer.
know it was Zack Snyder.
I like that movie.
Yeah, I think the Fast Zombies were a subtle touch.
I actually brought it up recently because I was saying that the whole like opening world falling apart in the first episode of The Last of Us reminded me of the opening of Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, which I still think is one of the coolest openings to a horror movie. Yeah, no, I really like that. James Gunn wrote it. It's pretty solid remake.
Anthony, what was the name of the actor that played the vampire at the center of Nosferatu from 1922?
1922. Well, I know in the remake it was Klaus Kinski, so I'm trying to think of who it was in the original. I feel like I should know this because of my deep background in German expressionism.
I'm trying to get into that deep background. You know what I'm saying?
Of the show.
No.
John, I need you to get to the deep background.
Fuck. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank, so I'm not going to waste time. I'll just say it was, in a surprising turn, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Back in time. It is a big green ogre from the swamp.
Max Schreck.
It is Max Schreck.
Yeah, because I remember we talked about the fact that that's what Christopher Walken's character's name is in Batman Returns.
It is indeed.
So that's a little reference to Nosferatu. Tone. The characters in The Mist from 2007 hole up in which of the following? Home, grocery store, office building, or mall?
Grocery store for the board.
That is correct. What grocery store specifically?
Kruger's.
Sure, I don't know.
It's an Albertsons,
I was about
obviously.
to say Albertsons.
Because Albertsons is such a weird name for a grocery store.
It seems like a place where
It's
you
like it's like an old timey, like oh, I went down to Albertsons.
Mr. Albertson.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels like a place where you'd be attacked by interdimensional creatures, though.
All right, we're moving into Monster, I believe. Is that correct, John?
Monsters the one we just did. Gore/disturbing is where we're headed.
Oh, okay. Right on. Great. Well, yeah, and just to recap, John and I are on the board with one, and John's next question is, what was the budget of Green Room from 2015? Was it $20 million, $10 million, or $5 million?
I'm going to say it's $5 million.
That is correct.
Excellent film. I gave it a 5 out of 5 if you go back to our A24 April 2 years ago.
What movie was that?
Green Room.
Green Room. Okay, weird. All right.
Not to be confused with Blue.
Ruin.
Yes.
Or Red Sparrow.
Oh, God.
Or Black Swan.
Why Red Sparrow?
I don't know. It was the first other color movie title I could think of.
Anthony, in The Last House on the Left from 1972. What is the name Mary gives Junior when she gives him her peace symbol necklace?
Senior.
I would not have gotten this.
I don't know if I've ever seen this movie, to be honest with you guys.
I watched it when we did the whole when we talked about that in Virgin Spring. I don't know. She called him Leonard Skinnerd.
The name is Willow. I don't know, but I think there's better things coming your way.
I would sure hope so, because you really seem to have misled me by saying you thought I would.
I thought you
have
had.
an easy
I thought you
card.
had that first one nailed because of your experience with your deep background.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, so.
Very true. Very true.
Tone, in your glore/disturbing category, the leader of the skinheads in Green Room from 2015 is played by what former Star Trek actor?
Oh, fuck. What is his name?
Come on, baby. Put some respect on it.
Patrick. Oh, sorry. Sir
There we go.
I wouldn't have given it to you.
Patrick Stewart?
It is indeed Sir Patrick Stewart. I glanced at this card at first and assumed that it was saying former Star Trek actor Anton Yelchin.
Oh.
So even it wasn't until I just read it that I was like, oh, it's asking about a different former Star Trek actor. But yeah,
different Star Treks, too. That's weird.
Yeah, he played Captain Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation and Picard the show.
Mm-hmm.
Does it say Picard the show?
No,
I
was
decided
gonna say
that.
that.
Yeah.
That card didn't know
I'm
about
trying
that.
to keep it as current as I can, you know.
All right. At the end of that round, John and I are at 2. And Anthony is waiting to get on the board. And we're moving into psychological.
You got it.
Player. John, what Korean filmmaker directed Stoker from 2013?
Stoker.
I hardly know her.
I saw a thing the other day that was like this bookstore got misprints of an edition of Dracula. And it said,
Stoker?
it said Bram Stoker's Dracula.
That's great.
It says Korean director?
It does say Korean filmmaker directed.
So can you make a wild guess and make it not racist? Is the question.
I mean, I can say Bong Joon-ho, and that's a Korean director. But
Is that what you're gonna say?
that's what I'm going to say because it's not him. But
Say what you mean to say.
It is Park
Chan-wook.
that was my second guess.
Were we talking about that? Him in the Oscars?
Decision to leave.
How funny.
Yep.
That's the one written by Wentworth Miller.
Is it?
Yeah, Stoker.
Fucking weird, dude.
I've left Stoker in the past where it belongs. Anthony, which character in Pet Sematary from 1989 is not resurrected? Gage Creed, Rachel Goldman Creed, Judd Crandall, or Bill Betterman?
Why did he turn into McGonagall when he said Pet Sematary?
Pet Sematary.
And Slytherin. I am going to say it's Judd. Judd doesn't get resurrected.
It's
He gets
Judd
his,
Crandall.
He gets
on
his
the
fucking
board.
Achilles slashed and he gets murked.
Mark.
Tone in a startling twist of events. In Stoker from 2013, which character is not a victim of Charlie Stoker? A. Richard Stoker. B. Evelyn Stoker. C. Gwendolyn Stoker. Or D. Mrs. McGarrick.
or E. Bram Stoker.
Evelyn.
Holy shit, you swung and you hit it out of the park. It is indeed Evelyn Stoker.
Oh, come on, baby. Aw.
I'll give you some.
All right. It's getting hot here. All right. So that puts me at 3. John's at 2, and Anthony is on the board now. And we're moving into Paranormal.
It is indeed paranormal.
I'm getting good at this.
John in Crimson Peak from 2015.
Covered on the
Which
show.
author does protagonist Edith Cushing say she would prefer to emulate? Jane Austen or Mary Shelley?
Mary Shelley?
That is correct. I almost considered not giving you the categories because that movie is very Mary Shelley.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a Del Toro movie, so of course it's got some Frankenstein connection.
Anthony, what is the name of the clairvoyant character that helps the Freeling family in Poltergeist, or as we say on the show, Poltergeist from 1982?
Well, the actress's name is Zelda Rubinstein.
She's like that. Hey.
Yeah.
This room is clear.
I'm trying.
Zelda?
Yeah.
Dude, that was such a good Zelda impression. I was about to call Link.
She used to narrate like the scariest places on Earth, and made it like 10 times as creepy to watch that. Madam Zeroni.
You got to go dig them holes.
From the Academy Award-winning picture Holes.
Speaking of
I'm trying to picture
It was Miss Cleo,
psychics
right?
and stuff,
It's
that's exactly what I was going to say. There's like a documentary about like her rise and fall.
Yeah,
I wanna check
how
that
she was
out.
a fraud.
Fraud. It's Tangina Barons. Or as I read it in my head the first time I read it, Tangina. Tangina Barons.
Gina, what's up? Right on.
Tone. You're not going to believe it. Your question is, who directed Crimson Peak from 2015?
Fucking damn it.
You can tell these cards came from right next to each other in the set.
Why did I just blank?
Okay, that's got him. I'm throwing everything at the wall.
Guillermo. Del Toro.
Benicio. Yeah, it is Guillermo del Toro. Congratulations.
Dude, when you write it out, I wanted to spit out Peter Jackson, so I don't know why. That's so
I
weird.
would have loved. If
But
you
yeah,
spat
again, you
out
got to
Peter
quit
Jackson.
talking.
Yeah, I'd like to spit on Peter Jackson for those Hobbit movies. Just kidding. I love Peter Jackson.
All right, so I'm sitting at 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Mm-hmm. And you got how many there, John?
What was the last question you gave me?
You got 3 now.
What was the last question you gave me?
The Mary Shelley, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you just got the 1.
I got the 1.
Tough
Hey, at
break.
least I'm on the board. Okay.
Yeah, he didn't get totally snubbed. All right, we're moving into Killer.
It is indeed Killer.
John, protagonist Aaron in You're Next from 2013 is of what nationality? It has options here. Do you want them?
For nationality, yes.
American, British, Australian, or Austrian? Where you from? Austria. Well, I'll put another shrimp on the
Bobby. I saw a thing today. It was like a chessboard where they were knocking over the king, and at the top it said, when you finished dinner at an Australian restaurant. Checkmate.
That's pretty good.
What were the 4 again?
I didn't tell you guys this, but on New Year's after everything ended, like the party was over or whatever, and they do like a little bit more of like the show.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, they had an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger on some like public access thing about him doing school stuff from back when he was the governor.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 a.m. and I was like, well, guess I'm watching this. And so I stayed up just to watch Arnold be like, I don't care if you're Republican, you're Democrat, it's crap. It's like, God, I love this man. Anyway, John, American, British, Australian, or Austrian?
Oh, why am I having such a hard time with this? I'm gonna go with Australian.
That is correct. Yes.
Fucking killing it, dude.
Doing my best.
Ooh,
Trying
keeping me on my toes.
I'm trying my best.
Oh,
Here-
don't
here-
worry. Your next question is horseshit.
I think you might have just said the movie that the question is about. You said your next question.
You'll find out.
We'll find out.
Just wait.
Anthony, what actress played the character revealed to be the mastermind behind the Ghostface killer in Scream 4 from 2011?
What's that girl's name again?
Who's that girl?
Looking for the
Actress.
Oh, fuck.
From Unfabulous, Emma Roberts.
It is indeed Emma Roberts.
Tone. I think this is an illegal move here in this game, but in what 2013 film does one of the killers wear a lamb mask?
Is that You're Next?
It is indeed. You're next.
What's happening? Are all of our questions related?
They literally made these cards together and put like they're from like right next to each other in the set.
That's so weird.
So let me guess. John's next question is going to be about the cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Is it a question for the international category?
It is not.
Okay. Mixing it up finally.
All right. Well, so you're at 4 and I'm at 5, and Anthony is at 1?
2.
2. Sorry, buddy. All right.
A gentleman's one. A gentleman's two, I mean.
All right, John, your international question is, what character in Vampire from 1932 is assisting the titular character? This is weird, but all right.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. From
Is it Ze Jonathan Harker?
It is the village doctor, so maybe.
I was like, how can I make Jonathan Harker sound foreign?
Could be. Might could.
Anthony, an audition from. First of all, congratulations on your win, because you already got it.
Why? Wouldn't we tie?
No, because
Oh.
you were one ahead.
Oh,
Did you sweep your card?
He's
Not yet.
Or he might.
Mike could.
Mike.
An audition from 1999 after paralyzing Ioma. What method involving needles does Asami use to torture him? Don't ever think of it.
She sticks him with the needles in his
What is that thing?
acupuncture.
Acupuncture is the word I was looking for.
There we go. Cool. I got to rewatch that movie. It's been a while.
It's been a
Since I
while.
first saw it.
Tone in The Cabinet of Dr. Curry from 1920. When
Stank on that one, buddy.
I know. When does an awakened Cesar claim Alan will die?
Right after the opening band played and had left the stage at Bottom of the Hill 2 weeks ago.
That's the movie that was on the TV.
Captain Dr. Caligari was playing on the TV at the bar.
Oh, okay.
At the show I was at 2 weeks
Okay,
ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Doesn't help you at all with answering this question.
Yeah. Tell me again, because John fucked me up.
In the cabinet of Dr. Caligari from 1920, when does an awakened Cesar claim Alan will die?
I have no idea, so I'll say tomorrow.
Oh, I was thinking you were gonna guess 7 days.
7 days.
I had 7 up over here.
The answer is before dawn,
Ah.
which is also that game that we... Is that after
It's
dawn?
until dawn.
Until dawn. Okay.
Well, no sweep.
But congrats.
Yeah, you guys still both fucking killed it, and we'll just forget that I played.
In my defense, or whatever, I did just get John's like sweep.
You got my leftovers.
Yeah, your sloppy seconds. And and hey, to be fair, in my defense, I've been too busy watching all these Oscar noms, which, they don't nominate horror. So that's my defense.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Your Honor.
Right on. Well, that's going to wrap it up for trivia. We hope that you enjoyed that, and tune in next week so you can get the answer to our bonus trivia question. And we're going to show you some ads and a little Porcelain Peak Patreon stuff coming up right now. And then we'll get started with our main discussion.
Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/Porcelain Peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/Porcelain Peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
Hey, you want to see something really scary?
Welcome back. We're going to
Booyah! Yeah, man.
get started with our main discussion. Continuing our James Wanuary, finishing her off and talking about James Wan's Aquaman.
See, I wasn't just doing that to try to interrupt you. I was doing my best Jason Momoa.
Oh, okay. Do it again.
Booyah!
Oh, that's pretty good. I'm wet all over.
Aquaman.
Aquaman. This one is directed by James Wan, starring Jason Momoa as Aquaman, part of Zack Snyder's
Snyderverse.
Aquaman
Snyderverse.
/ what's his name? What's his real name?
Arthur Curry,
Good job.
formerly played by that one dude in Smallville.
Yep. Amber Heard.
And played by Green Arrow from Smallville in the Aquaman show.
Very true. That had a pilot and then never went anywhere.
Anyway.
But yeah, so we got Amber
Yes,
Heard.
Amber Heard.
You guys probably never heard of her.
She really phones in her performance because you can say she shit the bed.
Okay, that's all of those jokes that we were gonna make. But
Just get him out of the way, had to happen. Anyway,
does that trigger you because you're Johnny Depp that we bring up Amber Heard?
Oh, see, that's why it's extra funny, John.
We have
Here's the deal. I was in mid-drink of water, which is why it was on... The camera angle was on the two of you, because I specifically was going to make a joke about how as long as nobody shits on me, Johnny Depp, that everything will be okay.
Well, too late now. But anyway, Amber
sorry,
Heard,
we're just much better joke people.
Willem Dafoe, Nicole Kidman, Patrick Wilson, I believe his name is, and
Lundgren,
Dolph Lundgren, and the Mandalorian.
Yahya Abdul-Mateen II.
Not the Mandalorian, the Boba Fett
Yeah,
himself.
Tamira Morrison, and Randall Park.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Lee Winnell as the cargo pilot. So
You're getting deep. You're getting too deep.
I know. So surprising turn for Willem Dafoe. He usually plays bad guys because it's in his name. He's Dafoe. So really interesting to see him. Really interesting to see him playing. Literally, this is all just going to be jokes about these actors' last names. Come on, quick, something about Momoa. No, so
My Momoa is broken. My grass is too long.
So I had never sat all the way through this movie.
I can see why, because I also watched it.
What I will say is I didn't hate this. I think that it is at least a couple rungs above pretty much all of the rest of the DCEU stuff that Zack Snyder did. I don't know if I would put this above like the original Wonder Woman or the first Wonder Woman movie. Mm-hmm. I would have to rewatch that, but I think it definitely is a step above like Batman vs Superman. I would say the theatrical cut of Justice League, obviously. Suicide Squad. Like, this is actually pretty fun in places and pretty stylish in a way that doesn't feel like it's just doing Zack Snyder's style of action. It really feels like Juan came in with a vision for how he wanted to do the action.
Now, Vision is a Marvel character.
No, John.
We don't have time for sidetracking. This is a fucking 143-minute movie.
It feels very long. Was not expecting that. But yeah, I agree. It doesn't feel
All
like
of
it
the DC movies are
necessarily
like that.
is in that same universe because it's not as dark and drab unless they're underwater.
There are also just things that straight up contradict things we've seen in the other DC stuff, like how in Justice League they have like the bubbles that they have to go inside of with the air inside to talk to each other. Juan was like, his quote was, "You guys are overthinking it. They're just going to talk underwater." Yeah. So he nixed that. Also, Mira has a British accent in Justice League and in the Snyder Cut, and doesn't in this. She also makes mention of like things like in this movie. She says she's never been to the surface before, but she shows up on the surface at the end of Justice League, the Snyder Cut, which Juan and Momoa have both said this is. They said this isn't a sequel to the theatrical Justice League. This is a sequel to the Snyder Cut. They like in retrospect said that that's the case. But
whatever. I know that we joked earlier, but I really think that she gave an awful performance in this, and their chemistry is not there at all.
there's
Which is
literally
really-
zero chemistry.
It's
yeah.
difficult because Jason Momoa is a beautiful man. I mean, I think that he could have chemistry with a tree, a literal tree.
He's not like a great actor though either.
He's not, but he's charismatic, which is important for a role like this.
He looks stoned half the time because he's always like
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I thought his performance was fine.
He reminds me of like Fat Thor. You guys remember Fat Thor? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that Jason Momoa is fat, but kind of like the dopey, like kind of like always a little bit drunk Fat Thor that we got in Endgame. That's kind of the vibe that I get from Jason Momoa's Aquaman all the time. But
It's kind of a dirtbag.
yeah, I don't think that the acting or the characters or the writing are really at all good in this movie. It feels like it's about 5 different movies all stuffed into one. You get the actually pretty interesting storyline at the beginning with David Kane, which is Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, which most people probably recognize from Candyman. He plays a pirate whose father is in this like submarine thing that they're trying to pull off. He gets killed sort of by Aquaman. I liked that scene where Aquaman's like, you killed innocent people, like, you know, ask the sea for forgiveness, and like just takes off, just dips.
Yeah,
and I thought that Yaya's performance in this movie is good for the little amount of time that he has in the movie. But it just feels like he's in a different movie.
Aquaman, and because he did that, the bomb landed on him. So I mean, really, the guy did it to himself.
Yeah. So I guess
But yeah, like I said, a ton of different movies mashed into one.
So that's why it's a little bit hard to go like, you know, here's the basic plot of this movie, but the main through line is that we get a little bit of we get a lot of an origin story for Aquaman, who we had seen previously in Justice League. We find out that Tamira Morrison was a lighthouse keeper and Boba Fett, and he was his father. And
funny enough, Willem Dafoe also in this movie, and he was a lighthouse keeper in a different movie.
I told you we don't have time for sidetracks, John.
Well, I thought it was interesting that they were surprised that they came and found Atlanta. Is that her name? What's her name?
Atlanta.
Atlanta? Yeah. What is her name?
It's Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah, there's no extra T.
Anyway, but then I'm like, well, you stayed in the place you washed up on the shore and then lived there. Like, of course they found you.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm surprised it took them this long, idiots.
We got Nicole Kidman, who apparently was a very vocal fan of James Wan's. She said that he was like the new master of horror and that she was a huge fan of Insidious and The Conjuring.
Which is
and
super
so
dope.
she really wanted to be a part of this. She had actually turned down the role of Wonder Woman's mother, like the Amazonian warrior in that movie, but decided to do this partially because they filmed most of this in Australia, which is where she's from, and where Wan is from. So yeah, she's in this.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, she's in this for like 5 minutes. Patrick Wilson given a real
Drab.
A real something performance.
It's very.
It's
flat
one of
and
the
one note.
performances of all time.
It's too. That's where this movie starts to get like.
It's one of the performances of all time.
Yeah, so there are.
There's too much going on in this fucking
that's
movie.
why I'm having a hard time. So, yeah, we get the origin story. We find out that Willem Dafoe's character helped train Aquaman, and we get to see like 9 different actors play Aquaman throughout his childhood.
To varying degrees of CGI.
Yeah, humans and Atlanteans aren't supposed to commingle, so the Atlanteans come back and they take Nicole Kidman. They tell everyone that she's been killed by being sent to the trench, But before that happened, she had another kid who's Patrick Wilson, so he's Aquaman's half brother. And yeah, through a series of events, Aquaman finds out that he is the rightful heir to Atlantis, but in order for him to take the throne, he has to
get a
spear. Magical. And it's basically King Arthur, which they obviously make a lot of references to in this.
Well,
where he has to-
that too.
Yeah,
his name is literally Arthur.
Yeah, he has to find the trident and defeat his evil brother, who has what could have been potentially a cool motivation, where he is like, hey, there's a lot of fucking garbage and shit in the ocean, so I'm just going to start spilling all this stuff back up onto the shore and declare war on...
Love that.
Seeing this, it's like in retrospect, it's like maybe James Cameron's writing's not that bad by comparison. Like when he wants an environmental message, he's like, we're going 100% into this, and I like the commitment. This like half and half, like, oh yeah, humans destroyed the sea, so we're gonna destroy them back, and then just the flip flopping. It's like that. None of that is an actual message in this movie.
Well, and then one of the kings of one of the areas is like, well, maybe we should teach them and educate them instead of trying to destroy them.
Yeah, and
I thought that was a good
he's just
message.
straight up like, yeah, no, I'm evil, and I hate Aquaman, and I hate everything.
I think that we talked about how Juan will make a movie and then take that stuff with him to his next movie. It feels like he did Fast 7 or whatever the fuck, and was like, oh yeah, that movie was praised for being over the top. Let me now incorporate that into this movie. And this movie is cheesy as fuck and super over the top. And you can see that. And then he took parts of that, and you can see what he did with that when he moved into Malignant, especially with the opening fight scene that's like circling around Nicole Kidman and this super dope 360 thing that he does again later, I think when they're in Greece.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really cool. I actually enjoyed the fuck out of that. And I don't know if I've seen that before or if anyone has emulated that since. And then he does that in Malignant. And I was like, okay. So you can see parts of it. But outside of that, like, there wasn't a ton of James Wan feel to this for me.
So I think something that I was interested in looking into was like how many people besides James Wan, who were frequent collaborators of his were involved in this. The cinematographer on this movie is the same cinematographer that he worked with on The Conjuring 2, but not on any of the previous movies that he did. So I was like, okay, well, I don't know how much connection I can see between The Conjuring 2 and this movie, but yeah, okay, there is that one collaborator, but outside of that, like not the same person doing the music, not the same, obviously not collaborating with Winnell. Yeah. I actually thought
the score, I was like, ooh.
The score itself, I wasn't like crazy about, but the needle drops. I always felt like Juan picks really interesting songs, like just like actual like licensed tracks. There were a lot of just weird, kind of unexpected licensed tracks in this that I appreciated. But yeah, to me, I actually made a short list of things that I thought were actually good about this movie. And let me see if I can find it.
Did you feel it was like if you saw this movie not knowing it was James Wan, could you tell it was James Wan?
No, I mean, so when I watched it originally, I wasn't like as like all about James Wan, and I wouldn't have known then.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have made the connection, be like, oh, the guy who directed Insidious directed this. I wouldn't have had that distinction.
Like if you're really straining, you can maybe say that like the opening when they're in this, when it's the storm, like when he first finds Atlanta, and like that kind of maybe looks a little horror movie-ish. And then when the trench monsters like attack the boat, that's a really cool sequence with all the lightning in the background. It's visually very striking, but I was like, yeah, I don't know how much of this feels like James Wan. I think the real thing that stands out that feels like a stylistic James Wan thing is the camera, like you said, during the action, where and that's what I put the first
takes.
The first note that and he still does a lot of the like zooms on characters' faces and stuff, and like zooms that go through a building, and it was like we were talking about with, I forget which of his movies, but that thing where like he'll set up where the scene needs to end with like a character, and then have the camera go from one place like through all of this other action, and then land like where he did it once with like Mira over here, and then moves through a building and through like a bell tower, and then Momoa's there, and it's like his scene now. Yeah, lots of really cool camera work. But the action, I think, was my favorite part of the movie because it feels very kinetic. Which I was thinking about it. I was like, so James Wan, in his previous movies, he always loves to do like weird angles where he's like up in the corner of the room or it's upside down. And in this, it seems like he realized, oh shit, I can now let the camera do anything in 360 because they're going to be underwater most of the time. So there's a lot of, almost to where it's sickening, a lot of just the camera spinning around people like this, to the point where I was like, okay, dude, we fucking get it. But most of the action scenes, I was thinking that's kind of interesting that you would think that the whole slow-mo style of action would fit an underwater themed movie more, but that's the style that Snyder is known for in his movies. So it seems like Juan was like, no, even though they're like these underwater people, I'm going to make sure the action feels like fast-paced and, like I said, kinetic, and it's just it's a weird choice that you wouldn't expect from somebody who's making like an Aquaman movie. You would expect it would feel more like slow-mo, like underwater, weird fighting.
Yeah, I mean, it eventually devolves into what all these superhero movies devolve into, is just a big, dark CGI slugfest at the end.
Where two people who look exactly the same are fighting each other?
I mean, yeah, they're opposites. Yeah, pretty much. Yep. I liked a lot of the land action.
So yeah, I wrote in here that the stuff on land feels more James Wan because it's real cameras going through, or not real cameras, but it feels more like real cameras doing real stuff instead of when you get underwater. As much as I love how much effort went into the design of all of these creatures and these vehicles and everything, once you get underwater, it just feels like not as good Avatar in terms of just being like a ridiculous CG fluorescent, insane, crazy fest. I say that like there is some merit, and I do applaud him for being like, yeah, I'm just going to have a giant fucking crab at the end that's coming into the battle, and people riding seahorses and sharks, and he even has the fucking octopus playing the drums in that one scene, which is a reference to the old cartoon where Aquaman had a sidekick octopus who played the drums, who was originally supposed to be a much bigger character in this movie, and then Juan was like, let's pare that down to a cameo.
That's really funny. It's a weird fucking movie.
Well, and then there's this whole stretch in the middle that feels like it just suddenly turns into a bad Indiana Jones movie. Because then they start globetrotting and going through the desert, and I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? This is an Aquaman movie. Like, why are you not spending almost all of the movie underwater?
I kept trying to tell myself, like, throw any sense of logic you have out the window, because I'm like, well, that's stupid. That doesn't make sense. That's stupid. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
but the only one that really got me is that when Arthur is shackled and they're in, like, the king's throne room, there's stairs. I was like, why would you need stairs? Like,
You just go swim.
If it was remnants from when Atlantis fell and it was above land, sure, but this is obviously a very new structure, and I was like, why are there stairs?
Well, and there's stuff like, why does anybody in this underwater world wear capes?
That was Juan. From what I read,
Yeah,
he was like,
just
I
wanted them
capes.
to have capes. Yeah, and then I said, like, the thing that really broke my suspension of disbelief was that Aquaman spends most of his time swimming around in denim jeans and work boots, and I'm like, why wouldn't you just strip down to your chonies and swim? Like, that shit's gonna wear you down and it's gonna be hella uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's a bloated film, for sure. And I think you get rid of 2 or 3 of these storylines, and you might have something. I mean, it's not like groundbreaking. Like I said, none of the acting performances really carry the film. I mean, obviously, it when it comes to the action is really, really well done, but it's so sparse because of all the extra shit we're doing to get to those points.
Also incredibly repetitive. How many times are there scenes where how many times are there scenes where somebody is delivering exposition and then something explodes? Like, it happened, I think, like 5 times in a row where pretty much the entire movie is just characters delivering long speeches of exposition. I
was watching this morning and I was like, Aquaman, like, exposition, man.
Everybody is just going on and on about this is what this means and this is the world and how you're important to it and all this stuff. And then every time they're getting through and they get to a moment, something explodes. And it's either Black Manta attacking, then you're like, oh yeah, he was a part of this movie. Yeah. That's a whole other plot line that would have been interesting on its own.
Pick one. Yeah, you don't need to have both.
Why do we have the Indiana Jones globetrotting? And really, I'm like, is it just because Juan was given a shit ton of money? And we talk about how
limitations.
Yeah, he has his limitations, and then he almost always at the end of his movies kind of lets it all go crazy.
He's like, "Oh, I saved some budget for this one, bitch."
But because of the limitations, you're able to kind of like, it stays a little bit reined in. Malignant, I think, is like the craziest on a low budget that he's been able to get with one of these tinier projects. But I think this really shows that if he had his druthers, which he does now, to have a shit ton of money, like, this movie was like one of the most expensive movies ever made, and made a shit ton of money also. But when he is able to just go crazy, he goes absolutely insane, to where like none of this makes sense, but a lot of people really dug it because it just is absolutely insane. At one point, they fucking go to the center of the earth and there's dinosaurs. And it's just like, oh, okay. Is that because Aquaman quoted Jules Verne in the beginning? I mean, I liked that there was a little Dunwich horror H.P. Lovecraft
in his dad's house
thing. Yeah. I mean, really,
it's what I think what appealed to people is it's not super dark. You know, we get a lot more of the light, fun, kind of old school comic book movies. And to me, that was appealing, and so I can see why people really like that. A bit change of pace. I mean, even something like from the Marvel universe isn't usually this bright and this kind of like fun.
It's
as much as they try
like
to make it
pre-MCU kind of vibe.
Yeah, and so that was cool. But you know, then there's the underwater stuff, and so tonally it feels very different. But there's not really any character development. Like, Arthur isn't that bad of a guy. Our first introduction to him is him saving people on a ship. Like,
yeah.
He's been a good guy the entire time, and so I don't really feel much of his development. And he's like, I'm just going to be a hero now, but really he's just being told what to do.
I would have honestly rather gotten rid of the fighting for the throne brother bullshit and found a better way to utilize Black Manta as a character, because I found that
what 2's going to be.
Black Manta was entertaining because a lot of the fights took place on land. So they had this crazy like rooftop battle and all these things.
And they lean into his goofy ass comic look in that. Yeah, just like they do eventually when they put Aquaman in his like golden green, scaled suit or whatever. I'm like, I like that you're leaning into like the ridiculousness of some of these like looks and designs and giant seahorses and armored sharks and shit. Like, yeah, I'm like, but I totally agree. Like, I thought that the whole, because really that Black Manta storyline, like when that started happening, I was like, ooh, this might actually be an interesting, cool movie. And then he disappears for an hour of the movie or whatever. But also the whole, having to take the throne from your brother, or like fighting with your royal brother or whatever, it's been done. It's Thor. It's reverse Black Panther. Like the plot has already been done in other superhero movies. Like, why not do something? I understand that maybe that's from the comics, but just do something that's different and more interesting.
It's also not far off of something like Hamlet. Like it's not that far removed.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Fighting for the Throne.
Yeah,
and it would be interesting if there was more going on with Patrick Stewart's character. No, that's all right.
Wilson.
Patrick Wilson's trivia. Patrick Wilson, yeah.
Sorry, yeah. More done with his character, but he is so fucking one note.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I just don't care
it's
about you.
It's sad too because like I
all.
like him as an actor, and like something in Watchmen, I feel like he has a lot of like nuance and different stuff there. And in this, he's just like, "Rise, Atlantis!" Yeah, and every turn where like you think he's gonna change, is just Momoa gets a little quip and like, well, I didn't know you were gonna grow up to be such a dick.
Also, that haircut is fucking goofy. All fucking.
Well, also, it was actually kind of jarring for me the first time after like an hour. You finally see Patrick Wilson when he gets. When Mira puts the air bubble around him and he gets dried out, and it's the first time in the movie you see Patrick Wilson's real hair in the movie, because everybody has CG hair throughout almost the entire movie.
It's all just going.
Dolph's
fucking weird.
Because none of it's underwater.
Well, and the thing that's also,
and I didn't understand why they made her look like Ariel. I don't know if that's what that character looks like in the comics, if she's even featured, but she doesn't have the same red hair as her dad has, and I was like, this is weird.
Well, and it's not even the same kind of red hair that she has in the Justice League movies.
Oh, really?
It's more of like a slightly more like faded, like natural red color.
In the Justice League movie?
Yeah, in Justice League. And
this,
in this,
I was
it's
like,
just like an
Ariel.
obvious wig, like an obvious bright red wig.
So weird.
Yeah, and the ridiculous, cleavage cut costume and all that stuff. But
and none of it was shot underwater, right?
Dry for wet, they call it. Yeah, so it's a lot of the time they would hose the actors down for scenes, I'm sure, when they had to be like, when they're on land and wet or whatever. Okay. But for most of it, they're just in like an arm on a gimbal, and they're just being kind of moved around in the air in costume. And then the crazy thing, and this is what all these Marvel movies do too, where you see so much of these behind the scenes videos of Tom Holland fucking jumping off of shit and flipping around and doing crazy shit, and then he just gets completely CG replaced by the time the movie's being made. Same thing with this. They're all on these fucking gimbal things being floated around and going through all this craziness, and then I read they go in and just CG replace their entire body. So it's literally just the face. The hair's fake, the body's fake, all of it's just fake.
Really?
Yeah, so
I thought some scenes, I was like, is the body CGI too? Oh, this is so weird.
Well, and then going back to Avatar, it's like, and then you go to this where he, developed underwater motion capture technology to film real people swimming around and doing all kinds of crazy underwater shit. And it's just like, I understand that not every production can be James Cameron. I'm not saying that James Wan should have done what James Cameron did, but, at least do more stuff to kind of blend the ocean, the real life ocean in with what you're doing with the Atlantis stuff. Because especially when all of your sea creatures are ginormous mutant versions of real sea creatures, you don't get too much of a feel that this could be an actual like underwater civilization that exists.
Secretly, anyway.
Yeah, it feels like the Gungan City from Phantom Menace. Like, that's really the vibes that it was giving me the entire time. Yeah.
Was this your first experience with this? Or
no, I watched it in theaters the day that it came out.
And so this is your second watch? Mm-hmm. How do you feel about it on a second watch?
About the same as I did the first watch. It's
not great.
It's not great. It's not bad though. I've seen a lot worse.
That's fair.
Is it one of Juan's worst movies? Yeah. But that's because Juan has a pretty solid track record, which we've learned throughout the course of this month. I think Dead Silence is a worse movie for sure, but just about anything else, I'd rather watch.
Yeah, I'll be really interested to see what Lost Kingdom is like.
Is that what Aquaman 2 is called?
Yeah. But I did want to rattle off just a few other just completely random things that I liked in this movie. I really dug when Tamara Morrison's character is unconscious and Mira like pulls the water out of his lungs.
Yeah, really
I thought
cool.
that was a really cool thing. And then you see that kind of come back in the Snyder cut, I think, where she's like pulling. I think she's like pulling water out of one of like Darkseid or one of his minions, or I don't know, or Steppenwolf. Liked that scene. I really liked the completely random comedic beat where the spit on my mic, where the one of the henchmen dude who has like the water in his helmet, when his helmet gets broken and he sticks his head in the toilet like to get the water. I was like, okay, that was dumb, but I liked it because it was a goofy little set piece.
So goofy. I like when that lady just finishes dusting and then they fall through her roof and she doesn't say anything and she just sits there the whole time. It's like, right on.
Yeah, and then the last thing that I wrote down is that I thought that the whole trench sequence, them getting attacked on the boat, which I was like, why are you on a boat? Do they explain that, why they're on a boat?
Do they explain why they ride animals
instead of swimming?
Just swimming when they swim hella fast?
Well, yeah, and then I was like, oh, they're on the boat
ships.
and they're like trying to fight these trench things to like keep them off the boat, and I'm like, just jump in the water and swim away really fast. You have superpowers. They do eventually.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of slow-mo jumping in this movie.
Yeah, but I liked the design of the trench creatures. They were heavily inspired by Creature from the Black Lagoon. They just looked like
Gilman,
emaciated Terry Gilmans. And then I liked when they actually, got the flare and jumped down and went into the trench, and you get to see it. Reminded me of like the Inferi or whatever, the zombie things from Half-Blood Prince when they're in the cave, and you can see them all in the water and you see the fire going around. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they take the flare down into the trench. That was cool, and it made me sad that there was going to be a more horror tinged spin-off of this movie called The Trench, and it was going to be about this location and like these trench monsters, with Black Manta being like the protagonist of it, like
oh really?
Yeah, with Yaya returning to the role, and it was either going to be at first it was going to be a movie, and then it was going to be a TV series for HBO Max, and then when this whole shuffle happened, Juan came out and confirmed that it's no longer in the works. So
that would have been cool.
But yeah, but I would have been interested to see him take this Aquaman world that he obviously put a ton of passion, and that's the thing is that the one thing that I can say really to me, like I can tell he put a lot of heart into the design of the creatures and the world and everything.
He also wasn't given carte blanche with any of these things. Most of the actors were all pre-chosen.
Yeah.
Because they came from an existing franchise. So, I mean, when you get down to the nitty gritty, you only are given so much innovation that you can make within this box. And on top of that, you're also dealing with one of the most complicated studios to deal with. I mean, we've heard all of the horror stories with people having to deal with Warner Brothers and trying to make projects happen and how much studio interference takes place. I mean, obviously, look at Justice League and how different it was when we got to see what Snyder actually wanted to put to film. Mm-hmm. And I think that you can tell that Juan had his head in the right places, but I think he was kind of dealt a bad hand to start with, and he made something pretty okay with the results.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm interested to see what Lost Kingdom is like, if maybe it goes more in the direction of, because while Lost Kingdom has been being made, the Snyderverse has kind of fallen apart. So I wonder if maybe he had more room to do his own thing with Aquaman.
Is that the last movie in the Snyderverse? Because Shazam is soon, right?
And then Flashpoint's in between.
Yeah, so I think that might be the last one in the Snyderverse, if you want to still call it that. Yeah, so I'll be interested to see. But yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, it's not a terrible movie, but it's too long for me to ever decide I'm just going to casually put it on and rewatch it. Like, if it was 45 minutes shorter or even a half hour shorter, I would be more inclined to be like, yeah, I'm going to put on this, the goofy Aquaman movie and watch all the colorful sea creatures swim around and stuff. But it's almost like Aquaman should have stayed that like goofy, silly dude who speaks to fish character, and we shouldn't have tried to make him badass, because then it just makes this whole like tonal conflict between the goofy fantasy world of Atlantis and everything else that's going on in this movie.
The DC Comics nerds who are like, actually,
Aquaman there was that run cool where Aquaman had the hook for a hand because he got his hand cut off. I don't know. I just remember seeing that in some of the art.
Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hookman.
Damn, because like fish get hooked.
Aquaman.
That's deep.
Well, on
It's like Johnny Depp.
I know we haven't been rating things as often, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say on a scale of 1 to 5.
Fish scales.
Nicole Kidman dressed as the Predators. when they find her on that island.
Is good.
Yeah, when they find her on that island, and she straight up just looks like she's dressed like the Predator. And then Momoa goes to try to hug her, and I'm like, dude, she's fucking got spikes all over the place.
Mama? 2.5. Middle of the road.
I'll go there.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not a bad movie. It's not a good movie either. Yeah. But, I mean, if someone's watching it and we catch it in, like, the middle, I might sit down and watch the rest of it.
If I could just watch a movie with just a cut of just the land action, I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 2.
2?
So 2 out of 5 Nicole Kidman's dressed as a Predator for me.
2 out of 5.
And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Right on. Well, that will wrap it up on our discussion of Aquaman
and James Wanuary is at a close.
It's been good. I've enjoyed it a lot. I hope that you guys did too. Hope that you viewers and or listeners did as well. And next month we are doing
our next theme,
found footage February.
We're big fans of our alliteration here, and that's 3 levels of alliteration.
Yep.
But that was great to listen to.
So next month at.
So, we're getting together a list of found footage movies that we want to tackle. I think we're going to try to cover not only like the tent poles of the history of found footage, but also throw in some found footage sci-fi and also some foreign found footage films. Whoa.
Uh-oh. Whoa.
Oh, shit. Foreign found footage February.
Films.
Yeah, whoever was listening to that, their heads just exploded. But so we're excited about this. I've been having fun doing these themes, partially just because it makes it easier for us to figure out what we're going to be watching and talking about every month. Mm-hmm. But yeah, hope you enjoyed James Wanuary. Thank you, John, for the excellent creative name for the theme.
It worked.
Hey. Yeah, it worked.
And if it fits,
for a low flat rate.
Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in this week. We will see you next week. I have been Town.
I've been John.
And I've been the rightful heir to Atlantis. And I've been also Julie Andrews voicing a giant squid crab monster. I was like, is that fucking Julie Andrews? And it totally was. Internet Darling Anthony.
That's a long-ass name, brother. See you next time.
Keep it creepy.